Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
This was our fighting power.
And if the hippies and the yippies and the disruptors of the systems
of the Falkland Islands and their dependencies remain British territory.
That the first atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima.
Good evening, and welcome to Today in History. I'm Matt DiTillo. Today is March 8th, 2010, and this is episode 425. Well, I promised you the second part of our episode about Admiral Husband Kimmel. However, in doing last night's research for the Zapruder film, I actually did a lot more reading than I'd planned on. Sometimes when I put these podcasts together, I sort of get sucked into the subject matter, and I end up wasting a lot of time, and that's exactly what happened. So hopefully I'll be able to work on it this week and present it possibly next weekend. So if you're looking forward to that, please stay tuned. It will be on the way. Today in 1916, 2 hours before sunrise, more than 500 Mexican raiders, led by Francisco Pancho Villa, crossed the U.S. border and attacked the small town of Columbus, New Mexico. The raid marked the beginning of a confrontation with the Mexican Revolutionary and helped the citizens of the United States wake up to the fact that isolation and neutrality brought no guarantees of security and peace. Columbus, New Mexico was a typical border town. Its only distinguishing characteristic in 1916 was Camp Furlong, a nearby army post manned by 350 men from the 13th Cavalry Regiment out of Fort Meade, South Dakota. Their presence brought a sense of security to the area. But a revolution was raging in Mexico, a revolution that would soon spill across the border and into the lives of both the town's citizens and the unprepared soldiers of the camp. The attack came from the southwest around 4:20 a.m. The raiders were not in Columbus to kill, but to raid. While their true intentions remain unknown, it is likely that the group was short on supplies, weapons, and ammunition. This theory is supported by the fact that most of the damage was wrought in Columbus's business district. Had they wanted to destroy the town and kill its citizens, they most likely could have done so. Some townspeople believed that the rebels were retaliating against a local arms dealer who had received payment from Villa for weapons and then never delivered them. As it was, the damage they caused was extensive. Most of the buildings in the business district were either totally consumed by flames or suffered major fire damage. Camp Furlong was attacked but received little damage, possibly because the raiders did not know how many soldiers were stationed there and did not want to find themselves surrounded by a numerically superior force. Many residents fled their homes and either headed for the desert, the local schoolhouse, or the Hoover Hotel. The noise from the raid alerted the garrison at Camp Furlong. Soldiers were soon running to the business district, weapons in hand. 2 crew-served machine guns were set up, one in front of the Hoover Hotel and another on East Boundary Street. This created a deadly crossfire. As the sun began to rise and Pancho Villa's men ran from the murderous machine gun fire back towards the border, the damage assessment began. Almost 75 of Villa's men lay in the streets of Columbus. 18 Americans, mostly civilians, died there as well. The American response to the raid was swift. General John Blackjack Pershing arrived from Fort Bliss, Texas, 2 days after the raid, and established Columbus as his base of operations. In less than 48 hours, soldiers from other cavalry regiments began to arrive. Soon, they numbered over 5,000, and made Columbus, at least temporarily, the largest city in New Mexico. On March 16th, exactly a week after the raid, Pershing and his men crossed the border into Mexico on what came to be called the Punitive Expedition. Their mission was to capture Villa and scatter his rebel army. Supporting a growing army of 5,000-plus men in northern Mexico proved to be a logistical nightmare. Pershing could not initially gain permission to use the Northwest Railroad to transport men and supplies, so his army resorted to using trucks and mules. Army trucks of 1916 were not the specially designed, rugged machines we know today. They were mostly bought straight from the manufacturer in the same configuration that was offered for sale to the public. On the crude and often non-existent roads of Mexico, maintenance soon became a major problem. In addition, thousands of horses needed to be shod, fed, and watered at regular intervals. Pershing had Army aircraft at his disposal for aerial reconnaissance, but the small, underpowered planes were easily grounded by strong winds. In addition, Villa's men knew the area well and utilized the rough terrain to remain virtually invisible. Still, Pershing's use of airplanes and his partial reliance on mechanized ground transportation helped bring the U.S. Army into the 20th century. The expedition eventually pushed 300 miles into Mexico, but Villa was nowhere to be found. The local population was of little help, as many citizens supported the rebel leader and disliked the idea of foreign troops riding through their country. In January 1917, the expedition was recalled. By then, it was a force of more than 10,000 soldiers. Pershing took his force to El Paso, Texas, where they were welcomed as heroes. The punitive expedition marked the last time a unit of United States cavalry took to the battlefield on horseback. Pershing called the journey into Mexico a learning experience and a timely one. In April 1917, the U.S. Congress declared war on Germany, drawing the nation into the First World War. The strategies of modern combat devised in Mexico would serve the American Army well in Europe, especially considering that Pershing was placed in command of the American Expeditionary Forces. One of the young officers who gained valuable experience in Mexico was named George Patton. Pancho Villa retired from the rebellion after 3 more years of fighting. He reached an agreement with the Mexican government in which he would move to Durango and retire. It was near there on July 20th, 1923, that he was killed by gunmen while driving home. He was 45. Although never proven, it has been theorized that powerful players in the Mexican government arranged the assassination. Interestingly enough, horseback riding cavalry units of the Army continued in existence until the late 1930s, and in fact there were armies in Europe that were still using them at the beginning of the Second World War. Well, that's it for the history this evening. If you'd like to get in touch with me, please feel free to do so. My email address is mattstodayinhistory@gmail.com. You'll find a transcript of this and previous podcasts at mattstodayinhistory.com, along with a donation link, which serves 2 purposes. First, obviously, if you'd like to be generous and leave a donation, and secondly, if you're interested in ordering a DVD of past episodes. If that's the case, the cost is $20 in the lower 48 United States and $25 everywhere else. You'll also find me on Facebook. Just do a search for Matt Dattilo. That's MattDattilo. There is a Facebook group for Matt's Today in History, but it's sort of been neglected. So if you want to visit there, you're certainly welcome to. Thank you very much for staying subscribed, and have a good evening. We'll talk again soon.